to this and share a few thoughts with all of us with the hope that it might help us, each one of us, to carry back some thoughts over which we can ourselves think over later on, and maybe help in our individual lives in some way or the other. I recollect once a very funny incident. Those were the days when the students would sit on the portico and the so-called the VIP devotees would sit on the upper portico, and Swami would spend lots of time with the students, talking to them, and just it would be as short as 5 minutes. Sometimes I remember the longest was over 2 hours. He would just stand there on the portico and keep talking, and it gave us so much of joy and so many fond memories to take back home too. There was one devotee who was a very stout person, and Swami used to keep asking him, "Kya chahiye, kya chahiye, kya chahiye? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want?" And he would always say, "Swami, I want to merge in you. Swami, I want to merge in you." So then he went on to tell him, "By that what I mean is you have to burn your ego up so that you will then easily merge into me." On another occasion, it's more or less, I think, it tallies with what was being discussed over here. Swami was talking about how the river tries to merge with the ocean. So he was explaining that scenario, and he said, see, when the river tries to merge into the ocean doesn't let it come in very easily. So whenever we see the locations where important rivers merge into the ocean, we see that the ocean pushes the river back. It keeps pushing the river back. It doesn't let it merge very easily with it. But Swami said, when the river goes back, then it exposes itself to the sun, evaporates, becomes vapor, and then comes out as rain. It easily merges into the ocean. So Swami, in these two occasions, used to keep using them to tell us that it's important for us to burn up our ego. Burn up our ego, because only then we become eligible to merge with the Divine Master. There are several things he has said about how do we, basically the idea of giving up our ego, burning up our ego, that is all what sadhana is all about. There are several prescriptions Bhagwan gives to many of us about how to do this sadhana. I would like to basically concentrate on the watch theory. I will try to explain it with a few lovely incidents which fit into this. Again, with the hope that the principle sinks into us with a greater simplicity and ease of understanding. So Swami's watch technique, I'm sure the young boys and girls who are sitting here will definitely know what it is. It's basically WATCH. W, watch your words. A, watch your actions. T, watch your thoughts. Then C, watch your character. And H, watch your heart. The Swami says when you watch each one of these 5, at that time what happens is, that is basically how we can live up our sadhana. The gurus always are very fond of giving simple acronyms which you can put at the edge of whether you have fever or whether you do not have a fever. Swami said the words are the indicator of the fever of worldliness in you. So the words that are loving, sweet, and pure indicate that you are well advanced in the spiritual journey. But words that are brash, full of harshness, full of ego, these are a classic indicator that the fever of worldliness is too much into ours. So Bhagwan always says, depending upon your words, you can make out where exactly you stand in the pursuit of your sadhana. So in this aspect, Bhagwan always says that Namasmaran is therefore indicated in this modern days to ensure that our words remain pure, sweet, and loving, and ensure that it is not brash or harsh like how it should not be. Yesterday I was talking to a few devotees. Some of you might have followed it on the live on the net. Bhagwan used to say that when you go on repeating the name of the Lord, Namasmaran, when you go on, you do not find time to let harsh words come into the picture. Like for example, somebody who is chanting Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram all the time, foul words do not come into you cannot bring in, because, first thing is something pinches in us. How can I get brash and harsh words into the same lips when I'm chanting the Lord's name? So it is very important that it is basically a replacement reaction in chemistry that we teach. So when we keep on chanting the Lord's name, we do not find time to bring in harsh and brash words by the first batch of students who were selected to work in the Whitefield Super Specialty Hospital. Those boys, a few of them, I think about 8 or 10 of them were there. And Swami used to spend so much of time with them to energize them, to enthuse them, so that, they would give their best to the hospital. Swami, of all people, used to recognize the enormous significance of finding the right people to do the right job, especially in the institutional foundation stage. So the Whitefield Hospital had just been built, and Bhagwan was very, very particular that the students should be given the right amount of energy and enthusiasm so that they could lay the foundation for a strong hospital. That was an opportunity he had gifted them. And he used to spend lots of time with them whenever they would come to Parthi or whenever he would go to Vrindavan. He would spend a very great deal of time with them. And this happened somewhere in 2001, if I'm not mistaken, when about 8 of such boys were called in for an interview. And Swami, now these are things which students will understand, because he used to be very free with us many times. So he said, let's have a test. Then Swami said, he looked at one boy and he said, I'm sitting on my chair. Can you lift my chair with me sitting on it? The boy said, I can't. And Swami called all 8 of them and said, come on, all 8 of you try this time. So they all got together, they started lifting the chair, huffing and puffing, it wouldn't budge a millimeter. There was 8 of young boys, and Swami was peacefully seated on his chair and the chair would refuse to move. Then boys were huffing, puffing, and out of, when you're exasperated or when you're exhausted, Sai Ram, you tell like that, right? So one of the boys, he was very exhausted. Sai Ram, he said. Instantly the chair moved. And Swami said, stop, stop, stop. I didn't tell you to chant my name. But then he said, did you see how easy it is to move the Lord with the name? What you couldn't do with your strength, whichever way it is, in whichever mood it is, you chanted the Lord's name, things became so easy for you. Always remember that, Bangaru, he said, and he left. So that means when everything else fails or whether everything is working, at all times, if we have the Lord's name on our lips, things which are seemingly impossible start to become possible. So it's very, very important, therefore, for us to remember the power of chanting the Lord's name at every point of time. And we need to keep it in our mind. So that is about watch your words. We need to sanctify it with the name of the Lord at every point of time. So if Namasmaran is prescribed to sanctify our words, then what is prescribed? Watch your word, watch your actions. What is prescribed to make our actions sanctified? Now that is where Seva comes into the picture. We of course had many times the occasion where we had to explain about Seva for Paraloka. But he also used to tell us many times that in the process of having our duty, we can still do Seva and make sure that God is responding to us. He actually said that. So that means he never saw any distinction between the need to sacrifice one for the other. So I remember one of our brothers, who was the first batch of 4 students selected by Bhagwan to go to Delhi All India Institute of Medical Sciences to get trained in the medical techniques which were there. And they joined the hospital. They came back after the training and they joined the hospital as somebody who could man the equipment there and basically help the doctors in working the operations. So there was one time this brother was in the hospital, and one patient was getting operated upon. And when he was getting operated upon, they discovered that he was sinking rapidly. And of course, this happens in the operation theater. Sometimes you save people, sometimes you can't save people. And this person was sinking rapidly. So for some reason, this brother saw that and he said, why don't we pray to him, pray to Bhagwan to revive him? But he was not sure whether prayers will work for somebody whom he didn't know anything about. This person was just a patient whom he didn't know at all. He had come into the hospital and he wanted to just pray and see what would happen. So he had a small break. It was a long surgery going on. So he went outside in the corridor during the break and went up to Swami's photograph and sent a very strong prayer. Swami, please save this boy. He's a very young person and his parents are getting very anxious. please save him, Bhagwan, because the doctors don't seem to be able to do much. So he went back, and then he discovered that suddenly the things started improving and the doctors could close the surgery successfully, and this boy survived. So he was very happy. That evening he went to the mandir, and Swami was apparently waiting for them. So when he came, he looked at the boy and he just didn't talk anything. He just waved his hand, materialized this much of vibhuti and gave him. This is for the prayer you sent for that boy, Swami said, and gave it to him. So that stroke told this brother of ours that, see, you can always do your duty. He was doing his duty in the operation theatre, but you can also do seva at the same time by sending out prayers for somebody else's welfare. Both can be intermingled in our daily life. So this incident was actually seen by many of us as a classic indicator that it is possible to do our duty in our daily lives, but also do seva at the same time with it. Pradhanam. Apatra dhanam means basically don't do seva in places where it is not indicated. Of course, sometimes we think, well, where is such a position possible wherein, I don't need to do seva? Yes, seva should not encourage evil tendencies. For example, if we try to do seva in places where it's going to increase laziness, we need to avoid. It's more of a sin. If we do seva to somebody who is going to basically do further damage, it's going to create a problem for us. So we need to really think. Dhami used the word again, desa kala paristhiti. Desa means look at the place. Kala, look at the time. Look at the place and the time and then decide what kind of seva you want to do. I remember one of our teachers had a very memorable experience with Bhagwan, where Bhagwan had brought a few guests to the hostel, Vrindavan hostel, and food was being served. All the students would sit and all the elderly people whom Bhagwan would bring, they would sit on a chair, benches, next to Bhagwan's chair, and then Swami said, wait. And he just lifted the spoon and took that sambar and put it near his nose. Smelt it. This is Mulangi radish sambar. You can make out very easily. What is this? How did you become a teacher? He pulled his leg and he put it down and he went away. Then, what dal is this? So the newly learnt lesson, so he smelt the dal and he said, this is so-and-so dal. This person looked very strange at him. No, I don't want it now. And he went away. Swami was seeing this and he went near the kitchen and signaled to him like this, come here. Inside, he ripped apart this teacher. Have you gone mad? Would anybody smell the food before serving to the people? He said, Swami, but you only taught me this. That was inside, not outside. So that is when this teacher understood, see, there is no prescribed formula for seva. Desa kala paristhiti. See the place, see the time, and then decide how the seva is to be done. So just because it works in one place, it will not work in every place. Shirdi Sai Baba's famous incident, those of us who read Shirdi Sai Satyartha will find it there. There was one fellow who was struggling with diarrhea and Swami gave him peanuts and said, eat it. The doctor and the person was aghast, who gives peanuts for an upset stomach? And to therefore understand the inner significance and analyze the situation and the time and then enter seva. Of course, Swami always used to tell us, don't wait for the muhurtam and don't wait for the opportune moment. When you thought of doing good comes, enter. But yes, thought of doing good is a very important prerequisite which most of us ignore. That means some thinking has to go in before we start doing the seva. After that only it has to be done. So it's a very important thing that we should learn. Desakala paristhiti. Please let us analyze the time and the place and then enter into the seva accordingly. The third thing about seva, which I'm really spending a little bit of time on seva because it happens to be one of the cornerstone principles, foundation principles of our own organization, seva. So many times Bhagavan would say, you do your duty seva sincerely and Swami will take care of everything, whatever else it is. So I remember once I had been to Vizag. I was doing my PhD at that time. And the Samiti people found out that somebody from Swami's institution had come. So they invited, would you be willing to give a talk, a satsang talk in the mandir? I gladly said yes, of course, because for me, it's a reliving of the experiences whenever I share them. So I said, yes, please, I would love to come. So I went and I spoke, and Visakhapatnam in those days was a different city altogether. By 8 o'clock, the city would go to sleep. There would be no public transport, and most of the shops would be shut. Hardly anything would be moving on the road, except possibly a dog here and there. And after the talk was over, people started, some satsang, pro satsangs, this and that started happening. Prasadam was distributed and everything was happening. And I was going on talking and I lost track of the time. Then somebody said, it's already 8:45, I think you should leave now. So I said, okay, and I left. I went to bus. I was staying in a hotel because I had come on a literature survey for my PhD thesis to the Andhra University. So I was put up at a hotel and I was waiting for a bus. Obviously, no bus would come because at 8 o'clock, everything shuts down, literally. And there were no Uber and Ola in India in those days. So I was waiting, nothing was happening. And, suddenly one scooter came. I said, looks like the slip telling them, but I said, I don't know. And he said, you are lucky I came along. Get in, I'll take you to your place. And then we got in and he put his visor back and, all along the way we were scooting along the empty roads. We were talking, he was discussing a few points with me and, he was clarifying a few things. He was asking me a few things, I was clarifying. In this way we were talking, going, and he dropped me at my hotel and he went away. I climbed one flight of steps to my hotel and suddenly, something like a big shot hit me on my head. Throughout the journey, I had never told this person where I'm staying. But like a pinpointed accuracy, he brought me bang to my hotel, dropped me there, and he went. I rushed down the stairs to see where it was. Of course, I wouldn't see anybody there. So I went back, it was over. I then went to Puttaparthi. Summer course began. And when summer course began, Swami called me inside to do some work because some distributions and all were track of that. Next time, don't do that. Keep an eye on the clock when you are speaking. A mic is not a license to speak endlessly, he said. I said, yes, Swami, I'll do that. I'll remember that. But it taught me a very important lesson. See, I was lost in not enormous significance on not allowing negative thoughts to enter us. Negativity, so whenever we would have anybody would having a serious issue in our mind, he would simply go and tell your friend, Ganesha. But when we are positive and we start to calm down from our negativity and try to understand things better, he would then take our letters. Negativity is therefore something he would never encourage. In fact, a dear sister of ours who is a faculty member in Anantapur narrated a wonderful incident once in her lifetime wherein Swami showed her how much he abhors negativity in her thought process. Now, she was an alumnus of the Anantapur campus before she became a faculty over there. She was a student of Anantapur campus. And when she was in her second year doing her BCom, she, like many other girls, she would maintain a diary to basically record, how the thought process is going on towards their spiritual journey. And, of course, whenever they had this negative thought, she would write down, no, this spiritual journey is too tough for me. I'm not able to, I don't think I'm qualified to take up this journey. I'm failing Swami in every way. So she was going on writing those thoughts process. So left side of the diary, she would write down the thought process. And the right side, she would write down notes, what was coming in the classroom, those things. So both were in the same book. So Anantapur in those days was, it had open plots, which means, stray animals would come in. But her beloved diary was at trouble here. So, and the cow had already chewed one portion of it. He had it firmly in the mouth. So she took courage and she grabbed the other part and a tug of war started between the cow and this girl. And, a few other girls came, tried to help her, shoo, and all, but the cow was very adamant. So before they could do anything, one half of the book was chewed. And then the cow let go. So then what was left was the other half of the book. So she discovered, then she found what to do, and because the next couple of days they were going to Parthi, many of these girls had a habit of putting up this diary to Bhagavan for Swami to bless. Main thing is, Swami, if there's a negative thoughts running there, when Swami blesses, those negative thoughts will go away. Positive thoughts, Swami will bless them, they will gain the energy to continue their process. So that was the idea. Couple of days they were going to Parthi, and just when they went to Parthi and were about to leave after darshan, Swami said, all the girls come, I'll give Pad Namaskar. So here was a wonderful opportunity and there was no diary. So Swami was walking among the girls like that, giving the Namaskar, and this girl hurriedly said, let me quickly write down whatever thought process is there, so that I will get it blessed by Bhagwan. So she started writing, and suddenly she discovered Swami was right in front of her and he was watching her very curiously. What happened? So she looked up and, she stared at him and she blurted out, Swami, the cow ate the book. So just she blurted out. Swami stared at her and he said, I know, I saw it. Bhagavan lays on us, we start doing when we start thinking negatively. So negativity in our thought process is something Bhagavan is very, very, very careful about. And it was another matter all to place it before Bhagwan or his Samadhi, Swami wouldn't know what I'm trying to tell. We had many times, we fell into the trap ourselves when we started writing letters to Bhagwan. And at some point of time, he decided to take pity and he thought maybe it is time to teach a lesson. And this experience happened on that occasion. We boys used to stay in the old hostel in those days, which was the edge of East Prasanthi. And in the night, without fail, we would do a satsang and, discuss about something good about Swami. And then we would come to the mandir and we would go to sleep with our beds. That night, the discussion was very clear. Somebody raised a topic. There would be about 15 to 16 of us who would be discussing. The topic came about writing letters to Bhagwan. So one of the call that came up was, see, there are so many letters people write. Even the postman brings, one whole bag of letters. As if what he is taking is not enough in the darshan. Postman comes later, with one big bag full of letters. So next day we went to darshan, and morning, of course, because I was still on a break between my PG and PhD, I was doing a door duty there. So I was just sitting there, and some school students had come. So Swami told me to go inside, get some pens and notebooks for them, distribute them. The process was generally sometimes he would be standing outside and talking. So after distribution, I would go in, put it in the storeroom, close the door and come out. Sometimes he would be sitting on this interview room chair with the door open, which means I'm supposed to keep the things back, leave the room, close the door behind him. Sometimes it also used to happen that he would sit on the chair with the door closed, which means I was supposed to put the things inside and stay silently near the door without opening it. So those are the three possible scenarios that would happen. So distribution was over. I went inside the storeroom, put everything, and I came out. Swami was sitting on his chair. He had collected a big bunch of letters, and the door was closed. So I went near the door and I was standing. Read all these letters. Most of these go into the dustbin, and I was staring at him, and I was just mentally congratulating myself, and suddenly he stopped, and from the chair he looked up at me like that. That chill down the spine, Are you getting some doubts? He asked me. I said, no. And he said, see, don't lie to your parents and your teacher. Come here, he said. Then he spread out the letters like this, and he said, pick up any one letter. Anyone. I picked up one letter, normal white envelope, nothing written on it. Then he said, go back to the door, open the letter and read what is in that. I said, Swami, this is a devotee had written to you. How can I read? I'm only telling you, go and read it. But don't tell me what is in that. I said, all right. I went back to the door and I opened it. It happened to be from some devotee in Calcutta whose son had some mental issues. And that person had brought his son to Swami some time back, and Swami had given vibhuti and said, along with the medicines which the doctors are giving, make sure that every night he has this vibhuti in water. Make sure he gets it. And that boy recovered miraculously. He recovered miraculously, and his father was so happy with Swami what he had given that he had written a letter thanking Swami for what he had done. I read everything, and then Swami crossed his legs and put his hands on the throne like this. He told exactly what was in the letter, including the name of the devotee who had written it. I was standing a good 10 feet away. I had picked up a normal envelope which had not even been opened. There's nothing on the envelope to indicate that Swami gets an idea of who it has come from. He just told verbatim what was written in that letter. I just threw the letter and fell flat on his feet. I said, Swami, I'm sorry that I doubted you. And Swami said, why? You have every right to ask questions from your parents and from your teachers. If they don't solve your doubts and guide you, who else will? You had that doubt not out of ego or with the intentions of challenging God or something like that. You had that doubt of a genuine interest, as did other brothers of yours. The letter is not the question. He already knows what we are going to write and what we have written. The letter is not read it. But then on another occasion, I referred this incident and I asked Swami, why do we have to write letters to you then? Many times he would go to Vrindavan, somebody would come from Parthi, Swami would ask, did boys send any letters for me? He would eagerly wait, like how, I remember how my father used to feel when I was in Parthi. Once and I told, but Swami, why do you ask like this? Then he said, let's begin with you. When you write a letter, what do you feel? I said, Swami, when I write a letter, I feel that Swami is sitting in front of me and I'm actually telling him and writing down whatever it is. And Swami said, that is the feeling I respect and I value. And I take the letter to bless that feeling. Not that I need your letter. So that is where everything got sorted out for me. The lovely position that he holds to our pious feelings whenever they arise, the lovely feeling that he holds in the process of our journey and how he guides it, everything fell into place for me. Whenever I write a letter, therefore, that feeling sticks on me very well now. So it's very important for us to know that this is a very mesmerizing feeling of watching our words, purifying it with namasmaran, watching our action, purifying it with seva, watching our thoughts, ensuring that they're always pure, because we have Swami in our mind, always it will happen. If these three happen, our character is automatically watched. Our character is automatically watched. That is the last part, 1-1. And why Swami lays so much of importance on this character also, there is once this happened, Swami made a thon. So it was a little confusing, it didn't strike me at that time. So there was a session going on after the discourse was over, and there were some elders there. So they asked Swami, were there? And I asked Swami, what is this statement? I didn't understand. Then Swami said, see, every time you have a problem in your life, you are very fond of blaming somebody for it. You know, you tell this person is responsible for this problem in my life. This environment is problem for me. That's why it is happening. But Swami said, why don't you understand that that environment has come to you, that situation has come to you because it is going to help you to discharge your karmic debt. What happens instead is when we start blaming the person or the environment, it happens that we start letting this negativity creep into our character. And then Swami says, the person who you think is responsible for letting this get into your character, he will leave tomorrow. But the black stain that he has left on your character, that remains for it with the rest of your life. So who lost here? Is it the person who created, you blamed for creating that in you? Or is it you yourself? So Swami therefore said, look at every environment and situation around you like it is a test that is going on, coming up for you to make sure that your character is strengthened with all good things and all negativity is taken away from you. When that happens, Swami said, you need to guard your character very, very carefully. And then comes the last one, which is watch your heart. Heart is something which once again Swami values as the spiritual heart, not a physical heart over here. There is something called as a spiritual heart, which Bhagavan says is the sofa in which God resides inside us. It's a single-seat sofa. Like Kabir has said many times, you know, that it's a single-seat sofa. If the world comes into the sofa, God leaves. If God comes into the sofa, the world leaves. So it is our choice whom we would like to make reach out. And this is an enormous thing which Bhagavan has said once. I remember there was one Northeast student who was there in our group. A final year students, we were having an interview with Bhagavan. And this person always used to look at me and another person who knew Telugu, and he would keep saying, you people are so fortunate, you know the language of the Lord. You people are so fortunate, you can understand the language of the avatar. I don't understand it. I'm coming from Northeast, you know, you people are very fortunate. Like that he would go on telling. And we were having an interview with Bhagavan, and Swami had spoken to us for somebody to put the hand out so that he could crush the laddu and place it in the hand, from there distribute to every one of us. So he looked around and this boy was there. Swami said, come here. And he came and he said, spread out your hands, and that boy spread out his hands. Swami put the laddu in it. Later on he told her it was hot, freshly made indeed. And you know, of course, the fragrance was amazing. And Swami crushed the laddu and he put it there and he started distributing. At random, he suddenly told him, Bangaru, my language is not Telugu, English or Hindi. It is the language of the heart. He felt so stunned. You know, see, and we were all wondering, what is this strange discussion going on? Why is Swami making this statement suddenly? But this boy was shedding tears of joy. When he came out, we asked him, Borbora, what happened? Sanjeev Borbora, he was also a fantastic singer. He said, Swami, what happened? What happened to you? He said, see, every time I used to ask you all, you are so fortunate, you know, that you know the language of the Lord. You are so fortunate, you know, that you are 3 years to complete. He did his UG and then he left. Entire 3 years, Swami waited, and just before he was about to leave, Swami gave him that lesson. Bangaru, my language is the language of the heart. That was the emphasis he gave. So it is such a powerful thing to therefore believe in that, he is always there with us, and all we have to do is to just reach out to him and he will answer. So I think I will just stop with this for many reasons. My flight is just in another few hours from now. I have to leave. I would love to speak a little more, and if I hurried up my talk or made it look a little confusing, it's my sincere apologies. That was not my intention. And I tried my best to pack in whatever I wanted to share in this short time. Sincerely, thank you. It's such a lovely memory that I'm going to take away with me when I leave for India. It's a very joyous moment for me also, that that I should speak about Bhagwan, stand in front of his chair, have that blessing. It is one of the best blessings to take away when you're going on a journey. And I sincerely thank all of you for giving me that opportunity, with my eternal gratitudes to Bhagwan. Jai Sai Ram.